Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Sorry there's been such a huge delay in between videos. I think my last video was Slobby's World, the series review from Netflix. So sorry that the wait was longer than anticipated. But here today I am here to review the Disney and Pixar film Soul, which is available now on Disney Plus. Disney was just not comfortable releasing it in theaters, specifically those cinema safe theaters that you kept hearing during like the Croods 2 trailers and stuff like that. So they released on Disney Plus since they're really trying to push that lately. And for any of you who have a Disney Plus subscription, you can watch this film right now completely free. They're not doing the Premier Access thing like they did with the Mulan remake, which is good because that was a good $30 charge to see that movie on their Disney Plus service. But yeah, let's talk about Soul. So Soul is a film that's actually the second film of the year for Pixar. They released Onward back in the spring, and so Soul's kind of their second film this year. So they released two films in the same year. Unfortunately, not really the greatest year to release movies, unfortunately. So they really didn't get a lot of money on either one of these, unfortunately. But let's talk about Soul. So Soul is a film where it's about a middle school jazz slash music teacher. He basically is a music teacher, not just a jazz instructor, but he's this music teacher in this middle school where there's a lot of kids in the class that really don't care about music. They're just kind of doing it just to add another class to their schedule throughout the school year. And he really loves music. His dad brought him to this late night jazz show as a kid. He's loved jazz music ever since. He loves music in general too, but he really, really likes jazz. So he's trying to teach this middle school class. Like I said, they really don't care. They're just kind of there to get the class done and not have to worry about taking another math or English or history class. And so basically, there's an opportunity that comes up from a former student of his that is an adult now and also pursuing music. And so he offers him this gig that basically is to perform at a jazz concert late one night, similar to the one that the dad took him to when he was a little kid, that basically inspired him to focus his life on music. So basically, he lands this big gig. He is offered full time and benefits at the school that he's teaching at. So basically, he's offered two big things. His mom is really trying to push him to go for the school one since it has insurance and benefits, but he really wants to do the jazz thing at this club somewhere. But on the way there, while kind of prepping for both things and making kind of a final decision, of course, he really wants to go with the gig more than the school thing, of course. He lands into this hole into the ground, basically a water hole, where they do like sewer work and stuff like that. And he wakes up in something called the Great Before, where he's basically just a spirit. He has no body anymore. And while he's there, he finds out this is the place where basically before newborn babies come into the world, where their personalities kind of develop, and by the time they enter the real world, they kind of have a personality that they'll grow into as they become an adult. And so, because he knows his passion and his interests, he thinks that it'll be an easy process for him since he got there by mistake. He meets this character named 22 that really kind of doesn't know what she's doing with her life. She hasn't even gone to the real world yet. So 22 is kind of the problematic soul within this world, the Great Before. And so he thinks he can get back easily, but he can't. He can't just go right back to Earth like he was hoping to. But he does have to teach 22 kind of. She's basically a small little soul like he is. She's voiced by Tina Fey. Basically, kind of what life's about, things she can pursue, things she might be interested in. And so, based off of other people that have tried to work with her, other souls, they still can't quite find her path. They don't really know what kind of personality she has. They bring her into the real world and things like that. So throughout the course of this movie, this guy has to figure out how can he get back to real life just in time for this jazz gig, while also helping 22 kind of develop her own personality. So whenever the day comes for her to become a person's soul, that she'll have some type of personality interest as well. And he also has to figure out kind of how that world works and how he's assigned to 22 and things like that. And all this happens over the course of the film Soul. So Soul, guys, this is really a great movie. I really think that I can't say it's my favorite Pixar movie, but I think this is a very interesting concept they came up with. Probably my favorite concept they've pursued since Inside Out, which I also really liked a lot. Also very original, like Soul was. But it's very, very good. There's tons of things to love about this movie. So much messages about. There's a lot of messages on like finding your path in life, living life to the fullest, enjoying the small stuff along with the big stuff, making sure that they both kind of have their own even grounds. So by the time you pursue your own things and pursue kind of what you want to do with your life, there's just as much of the small stuff as there is the big stuff. So there's really cool messages like that along the way that really makes Soul a very enjoyable experience. So let's start with the positives and negatives. Soul is a great and original story. It really, truly is kind of its own little thing. It doesn't feel like anything else. There's elements of Inside Out, like you might be hearing in the reviews, but it's just elements. It's really, they're very different stories. Inside Out's more about kind of the story behind why people have emotions, while Soul's more about finding your path in life, figuring out if the things you're pursuing are exactly for you. It's okay to have interests, but it's also important to know what your skills are. It's also important, like I said, to enjoy the small stuff along with the big stuff. So they're really kind of about different things. There's things about both films that are similar, that do have similar storytelling elements and things like that, but they really are different. I would say that's probably the closest thing that Soul has to a competing story as far as this idea goes for a movie. But it really is a great and original story that really feels like it's nothing else. That it really is kind of its own little experience. That it's not like anything from any other genre or anything like that. So it really is an original story, and I love it when Pixar could do this kind of thing right. I also like the Great Before setting. I like all the rules to it. It looks beautiful. I like all the varieties of how the souls can find personalities and things like that. It really is a great setting for a movie that's original and different, and I just love how great and interesting it was to see this story take place in The Great Before. Pixar did a great job with a really cool setting for the movie that really fits the message of the story as well. The messages of this film are also very, very good. You might even hear people every once in a while on the internet being like, yeah, it made me think about my own life, whether I was doing the right things with my life, what was I was getting wrong, but ultimately, what am I doing right? And so the messages on living your life and enjoying the small stuff, and several other messages, of course, really do make you think about your own life, how happy you are, how upset you are on certain aspects of it, and stuff like that. The messages of Soul are probably one of the strongest Pixar's ever done as far as messages go. It's a very strong element to this movie that really, really works well. I also like the rules of The Great Before. I like how it's not just you have a personality, you're already in the real world, you just jump back into Earth. It really is more complex than that. It really is about um, finding out when you do go back into a body what exactly you're going to do, and mastering things like how you're going to eat in public and how you're going to sleep and how you're going to form a schedule and how you're going to pursue work when you do pursue work and stuff like that. There's tons of different rules about The Great Before that are really interesting, and you can tell Pixar spent a lot of time and effort making sure this world works when we spend a lot of time there in this movie. I also like the jazz moments. There's a lot of really cool jazz moments where you really get to see why this teacher is so interested and so passionate about music and about jazz. They really are very cool. I myself was once a part of a jazz band years ago. It really does pursue that music genre very, very well. If you're not interested in jazz yet, Soul might do what La La Land did for a lot of people, including me. Really get you interested in jazz and see why people love it so much and even pursue careers with jazz music and stuff like that. The jazz moments in this film are very, very powerful and very, very good. And it might even get you interested in jazz music if you're not interested in it yet. There's I wouldn't say brief, it's probably a little longer than that, but there is a small sequence in this movie where Jamie Foxx's character, this teacher, does temporarily become a cat. Obviously, I can't talk more about it. It might be spoilers, but he does become a cat. It's very, very well done. They really do kind of everything about like what if a person was stuck in a cat's body and things like that. So Jamie Foxx did a terrific job at that, including the writers at Pixar for those series of scenes. It really is funny stuff when the Jamie Foxx character does become this cat in the movie. For my negatives of Soul, because like I said, it's not my all-time favorite Pixar movie. If I really had to label it, maybe in my top 6 or top 7. But yeah, it's very good. But like I said, for my negatives, without going into the spoilers, I will kind of talk about it without spoiling a specific thing in this movie. So I thought the ending of this film, like I said, no spoilers, it felt very indecisive. It felt like one of those things like when people saw Interstellar, or when people saw, or for me personally, when the movie Into the Woods came out. Remember Into the Woods, the musical, when it became a movie? So for Into the Woods and Interstellar, something that Soul does that's similar to those two movies is it technically has an ending, but it's using 3 endings at once. And so they can kind of just, instead of just choosing an ending and going with it, they kind of pursued all three of them, and they put the one that they thought would fit best for an actual ending at the end of those scenes. So there really is kind of three endings at once. Really doesn't work for me. It might work for other people for like, oh, I was hoping for this, and I was hoping for that, and I was hoping for this. It felt very indecisive to me, and I really didn't like this quote unquote three-part ending that Soul unfortunately pursued, and it just kind of felt jumbled as a result toward the end. I also thought when 22 temporarily becomes a person, um, the real world time stuff when they pursue that, it felt a little overlong. I felt like they pursued that a little too long in this movie. I really would have preferred something that were they were in the great before longer, or they did something more with the jazz teacher. So yeah, 22's real world time in this movie did feel a little overlong to me, and I felt they could have cut that down a little bit. I also would have really liked to have seen more scenes dealing with jazz music. Yeah, there is really good scenes dealing with jazz music. They don't spend a lot of time with it, unfortunately. So I thought they could have done more stuff with this teacher really pursuing kind of why he loves jazz music so much. I think it would have helped the film more and could have shortened the 22 becoming a person thing temporarily. It really would have made the film much more enjoyable with more scenes with jazz and less scenes with 22 pretending to be this person. Soul doesn't really have a villain either, and that kind of upset me because there's scenes that suggest villains. Two characters in particular. One of them's kind of in charge of making sure all the right souls go to Earth at the right time, and the other one is kind of this temporary character where this character's lost, so to speak. And they kind of pursue it for a little bit. They kind of drop the other villain, and it felt like they really didn't know if they wanted to have a villain in this movie. And when they did do it, it just kind of felt a little out of place to me. It felt like they just kind of did that just to make the film run a little bit longer. So I thought if Pixar really wanted a villain in this film, have a villain in this film, pursue that one villain. Don't go from this character to this character back to that character. It really is kind of a human versus nature kind of story, and I really wish Pixar could have kept that in mind, specifically towards the end of this film regarding villain characters. But overall, I'm going to give Soul a 9 out of 10. It really is a terrific film. It's very original. Top 7 Pixar movie for me, not really top 3 or anything like that. I love the Great Before setting, its messages about living life. I love the rules of the Great Before. The jazz moments are very strong. And Jamie Foxx, when he temporarily becomes a cat in this movie, is very, very funny. But like I said, the ending felt a little too indecisive to me. The scenes with 22 in the real world, I liked them, but they went on for a little too long, I felt. There could have benefited from more jazz material in this movie, and I really would have liked to have seen Pixar actually pursue a villain rather than thinking it has a villain. And like I said, this really is a human versus nature kind of a story, and in those kind of stories, you really don't need a villain. But overall, Soul, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I highly recommend it. It is on Disney Plus now for absolutely free if you have Disney Plus. So I highly recommend seeing that today if you haven't seen it yet or sometime soon. Soul's a very strong movie, possibly one of my favorite films of the year, and I highly recommend seeing Soul.